Human society and culture is driven by technology. Every single society that is advancing tends to use more energy and more technology over time. So energy is life. And if we continue to have this mindset that we need to conserve energy, what we're doing is we're constraining the ability of humans to have life. I think we have to change our mindset as a world towards let's use energy, because the more energy we use, the more life we have. Where does society go when the technology is made available? Where does society go when you have a free-for-all in terms of AI? There's a lot of risks involved. Exponential asymmetric risk, both good and bad. If AI can make each one of us 5 times more productive, we could solve the energy problem, we can solve the climate problem while increasing human productivity, because AI will help us get to those answers. The human ingenuity is limitless. Using these tools to unlock the potential of 8 billion humans, what could we do? We can increase our energy use by 1000x while having a great environment. It's up to us to make the most of that time on Earth. And I believe that we leave probably 90% of our potential on the table.
Bruce, one of the new streams that we've introduced this year is really unpacking the idea of our identity in a digital age and how AI, algorithms, the blockchain, the way we interface with technology is fundamentally questioning and changing what it means to be human. On one side, you sort of have the doomers who are, we have to stop now, we've gone too far, we're building Skynet. On the other side, you have the accelerationists or even the transhumanists who think this is part of our natural development trajectory in the next stage in human evolution. Where do you fit on that spectrum, and what kind of impact is AI going to have on humanity?
Yeah, I'm definitely towards the accelerationist angle, but for a particular human reason. And that is that AI, well, actually, let me take one step backwards. Human society and culture is driven by technology. And the tooling of that technology is something that we learn to master and harness for human flourishing. And so that's the way I see something like AI. The whole signature of what humans are is to find a new technology, turn it into a utility and a tool, propagate it across the entire species and the planet, and make it something that everybody can use for the betterment of our lives in some form. Every single society that is advancing tends to use more energy and more technology over time. And so if we want a society that is flourishing for humans, or an environment that allows humans to flourish, you need to use more energy, you need to have more technology. And so I fit AI as not this scary new technology that we should be fearful of, but it's another one of the next phase of tools, the next iteration of tools that we can use as humanity to hopefully make the world better in some form.
Well, there's something about technology that also reveals more about our innate nature. And I think about the advent of the plow, and you can scale your production on the same piece of land, let's say 10x. Right. And you would have some farmers who said, great, I can now farm 10 times as much land, produce 10 times as much produce. Then you would have other farmers who say, great, I only need to do 1/10 of the work to achieve the same outcome.
Or what do I do with my 10 voice?
Or what do I do? But then that's where, when you have an abundance framework, you have your beginning narrative is one of empowerment and excitement and, I guess, optimism. That takes you in a far different trajectory to one of restriction and pessimism and fear. Yeah. But I suppose there's also, you do have to take into consideration the warnings, and you can't be naive. It has to be, you have to fear the right things so that you can angle your optimism in the right spaces in lots of ways.
Well, I mean, so this is the interesting angle. I definitely think that technology should be driven by a certain societal and cultural basis. You need to have that, because that's how you know that society is going to be moving in generally the right direction. Otherwise, it fractures, right? So technology alone is not the panacea to solve every problem. Rather, it fits actually into the context of the society. Yeah. Obviously, I think. The way that I would look at kind of how technology and AI work in the future is that we should not fear it as a way that it's going to change our society or change us as humans. Humans are the way humans are. We see that over and over again, and it's always going to be displayed in some form. Technology just exposes a different aspect of who we are. And one of the most humorous aspects of AI is that we imbue the AI with human characteristics of greed, of violence, of all. AI doesn't care about that stuff. AI is a tool that wants to provide a service and an answer for the human overlords. We are the actual overlords of the AI, in my opinion. Yes, AI is going to get stronger and stronger. It's going to go exponential. But what that means is that as a human, as long as you're basing your decisions on the right moral framework, and then you ask the right questions about how do I turn this into a utility that brings the most value, the AI is there to serve you. And so that's where having a broad set of human experiences, traveling a lot, educating yourself a lot, getting the right mental models and the right frameworks allows you to get AI to serve you, to give you answers that are 1,000x better than somebody else, and hopefully build a business on it. Yeah. That's actually how I see the logical way that humans should interact with AI. We are the overlords of AI. We should be developing our judgment, keeping our minds open, looking at the ideas that could help, and then saying, how would AI help me do this? You know, it's an interesting journey, if I could just jump into this. I've done a completely 180 in terms of my mind view, in terms of energy use, in terms of technology, in terms of where we're going in terms of the climate. I used to believe that we were heading for a complete and utter disaster. The world would end if we didn't change ourselves on the climate side and on the energy side. And now that I've been working in technology for 10, 15 years, I've changed that, because if AI can make each one of us 5 times more productive, if the AI can help us find the solutions to some of the intransient problems that are facing humankind, we could solve the energy problem, we can solve the climate problem, we can solve all these types of problems that we've assumed, while increasing human productivity, because the AI will help us get to those answers. Yeah. And so that's what you talked about, this abundance mindset that means I'm no longer feeling guilty about taking a plane ride from one city to another. Yeah. Because I put that into context. If I'm able to do what I do, consume energy, I will hopefully on the backside create more value.
Yeah. And on that production of value, there's also, we need to have a nobler vision of what humans actually are. And sometimes I've been frustrated with the AI debate, with the AI will become our overlords, but there's so much of humanity that we take for granted that actually it can be our irrationality that makes us kind, that makes us gentle, that gives us opportunity to forgive, that makes us creative, and that these systems, if they're just purely productivity systems, they won't be able to replicate the irrational parts of humanity that actually has meant that we've been able to share flourishing, that we can be self-sacrificial, that, you know, a father and a mother can give a part of themselves to raise children because there's a recognition there that life and that opportunity and that potential is so much greater than whatever they could achieve with those finite hours that they would have otherwise hoarded for themselves. And in lots of ways, this is just as much a philosophical question as it is a commercial one or a technological one. It's what is our vision of the human self before we start to work out, well, how does AI fit into that?
Yeah, how I would expand on that idea is that we need more humans. Why? It turns out that an AI is sourcing data from multiple sources. And humans turn out to be probably one of the best sources of data. And that I'm not bringing humans down to like a source of data, but each of us as an individual is truly unique. Yeah. You know, in the grand scheme of the universe, we're nothing. But in our place and time where we are, you and I, we are truly unique. And it turns out that AI needs that because every single individual has a data point and sets of data points that help the AI learn and then mirror that back to us to help us. And I think that the how you place that into society in the sense of how does the AI work relation to human is that I lost my thought, sorry.
No, you're right. No, but you were talking about how human beings all have unique data points, and that's in lots of ways why we're so valuable to technological systems, because actually we are the nourishment for these systems and trying to learn and grow and extend their own capabilities and potentials.
Yeah, we need more humans on the planet, actually. Like I've gone from a decelerationist kind of mindset to a framework where actually no humans and the unlocking of human potential using tools. AI is just one of them, blockchain is another, data is another kind of aspect. But using these tools to unlock the potential of 8 billion humans, what could we do? Well, we can colonize the galaxy. We can increase our energy use by 1,000x while having a great environment.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I'm trying to think now. Have more kids, have the right kind of moral and societal and cultural basis to make these decisions, because actually that's the core.
Yeah.
And I think that we truly can solve many of the problems facing us in our day and time. And of course, new problems will come up.
Yeah.
And we'll have that drama over and over again. But as long as we're moving the society forward and kind of accepting technology, running towards it, and seeing that it is just a tool. It's not something to get hyped about, you know, to not get into a flurry of concern and such, in my mind.
Well, I think one of the challenges where you're at and just your business experience, you're so exposed to this, but for a lot of the world, this has just absolutely run up on people so quickly. I mean, you think about the early 2000s where the internet was still a big deal, to the advent of the mobile phone. The acceleration of this, a lot of our legislators, our politicians, they don't even understand what it is they're grappling with. So to get into the practical, there's this idea that if the product is free, you're the product.
Right.
Why is data so important, and how has that fundamentally changed the way that we do commerce, the way that businesses relate, even the way that we, you know, work through institutions? What is data, and how can you actually just unpack how the world has changed in the last 20 years?
Right. So 10 years ago, we started on this journey based on the concept that the human ingenuity is limitless. There is no limit or bound to us. We are far more powerful than we can ever imagine, and most of us use 2 to 5% maybe of our potential. And there's one accelerant and leverage point that we could do, which is to digitize ideas. Can you digitize all the concepts and ideas that every person has and make it easier for them to express their uniqueness, their authenticity as a human? And so 10 years ago, we started a company called Ascribe that was looking to make it so you could own your ideas. In a world that has become digital, that's how you get the maximum leverage. Global distribution, digital sharing, everything like that. Anybody from anywhere on earth with their own uniqueness can find a way to have meaning and add economic value in the world. That was 10 years ago. And along that 10-year journey, what we realized was that who is the consumer of this uniqueness, this data, all the stuff that we produce as humans, all the sensors and everything that's now surrounding us in the world? It turns out that an AI system consumes data at 1 million times the rate of a human. The end customers for all this data and uniqueness that we produce is an AI. And so we've now evolved the company to an AI company where we build AI in open source tools where everything is transparent. You can see the AI algorithms, you can see kind of how the AI how the data is structured, and you can make it. So we're trying to build infrastructure to allow anyone on earth to build systems and tools on top of this AI and this data infrastructure, and spread out the possibility of economic value and startups globally, and not restrict it to the 5 or 6 internet platforms that currently monopolize this type of work.
It's interesting to think about the advent of the printing press, and in lots of ways it broke down the traditional silos of information. There was maybe the state, the church, maybe some local leisures, whatever it was that controlled the flow of information. But you have the printing press, and then all of a sudden information becomes democratized. The advent of the internet feels like a first democratization, but then open source seems to be the next step in that, where actually it's giving anyone anywhere in the world the tools and capabilities to use these systems. I guess just taking one quick step back, what is the difference between open source and closed source, and what is the difference between what you're doing and say what ChatGPT runs on, or Grok, or those existing kind of closed source systems?
Yeah, so most of the tooling now up until this point has been closed source. Recently, I think it was Facebook that released most of their, or it could have been Google, they released most of their models open to the world. So they let it so that people could start adjusting the various kind of widgets within the models to gear it towards their stuff.
Yeah.
And so what they're trying to do is make it so that, okay, sure, we trained all these models in private and with our own tools and methods. They keep that kind of knowledge. They release the sources, open source models to the world so anybody can use them. And what they believe is that the value, so that was the value creation. The value capture on top of that will be on entrepreneurs. And they hope to play a role with this. And so I think that's a great strategy. I think that makes a lot of sense, because what that means is that if you're a developer, no matter where you are on earth, you can look at these models and say, what's my unique position? What's my unique circumstance where people need this type of value?
It might be too crude of an example, but is it like the App Store, where once you open those tools up, it means anyone can make an app? It creates more value both for your platform, but then also for the producers who want to innovate, but then also the consumers who now have this abundance of different technologies that they can tap into.
Exactly. The internet platforms have that, and so those are, they might have these things called app stores, and what we're trying to do is essentially have an open source app store where it's a free-for-all. Now, when there's a free-for-all, it goes back to the question you'd had previously about where does society go when the technology is made available? Where does society go when you have a free-for-all in terms of AI? And there's a lot of risks involved. Asymmetric risks, exponential asymmetric risks, both good and bad. Now, I've done a lot of traveling around the world, and that was one of the reasons why I spent a lot of time I spent almost a decade also in Russia. I spent time in China. I spent time on all three kind of major, North America, Europe, and in Asia. The fundamental sense I have of the goodness of humanity is there. There's always going to be a certain proportion of people who have ill intent, and they will use kind of the tools to make that happen. But I think that is part of the narrative that we would probably want to promote now, in that there is still individual responsibility. We shouldn't have the state governing and dictating to us what is right speech and wrong speech, what is right action and wrong action. It's actually up to citizens and individuals to play a role in policing kind of the people wanting to do ill, but also to build the tools that help people and can cause and create economic value. I fundamentally believe in the goodness of humanity, because you have to. If you don't, then we just go into a nihilistic kind of downward spiral. And I think that, I thought about this morning, since the start of civilization as we know it, about 10,000 years ago, we're 400 human generations from that. We're 75 generations away from the Roman Empire. There's only 75 generations between us and the Roman Empire. And we have come so far from there to here, in my mind. We're constantly developing, and you can only have that if the general tendency and the slope of humanity is towards goodness. That
is such a beautiful concept. I'd love to pick up on something you were talking about earlier about innovation, abundance, but then also you talked about the role of energy. And I think about your business and what you're doing in open source, and I've found that the big limiting factor on democratizing open source AI, for example, is processing power, and then the embedded energy attached into that. How do we reshape the energy debate as a society to see it as a liberator and power through electricity, through fuel, as something that can maximize human flourishing, as opposed to this kind of zero-sum trade-off between energy provision and then environmental collapse and catastrophe?
First off, I think in the universal scheme of things, the Earth survives with or without humans. Nothing we do. I've changed my mind on this too, right? I was a climate doomerism 3 years ago. Nothing we do is going to hurt the Earth in the long term. There's theories out there that human societies have collapsed completely and restarted. For instance, 10,000 years ago, a big meteor hit the Earth, and it took out most of civilization, and we rebuilt it in 10,000 years. That's the theory. So that's kind of the highest level way that I can think about it. If you think about energy, energy is life. When you travel to visit your friends, you're taking energy. When you take a plane to a different part of the world, you're adding to your oeuvre of life experiences. So energy is life. And if we continue to have this mindset that we need to conserve energy, what we're doing is we're constraining the ability of humans to have life.
Mm-hmm.
That's the simplest way I think about it.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if we could increase every individual's energy use by 1,000 times? Of course, if we're burning down trees and we're using coal, the air is going to get bad, and we're not going to, we're going to kill a lot of plants. So what are the options to make it so that we can increase our energy use by 1,000 times for every single human while keeping the forests and leaving the coal in the ground? Well, we have a few options, right? We have nuclear, we have fusion, we have a couple other ones.
Yeah.
Solar, wind, where it makes sense, geothermal, whatever it takes. But I think we have to change our mindset as a world towards let's use energy, because the more energy we use means the more life we have.
Yeah.
One of the saddest things that I found during the pandemic was walking through some buildings in Germany where all the lights were turned off.
Yeah.
And it was the most depressing hallways that you could walk down. I'm sure around the world people had that experience when everybody just turned off everything. The restaurants were closed, the streets were empty, all the buildings were empty. That was not a happy world.
Yeah.
People were very sad.
Yeah.
The street lights were all turned off. It felt gloomy.
Yeah.
And then, when that wave passed, people turned back on the lights. They opened the restaurants. They opened back up the buildings and the concert halls and the cultural venues, and people started feeling alive again.
Yeah.
So what is that? That's energy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's life. Speaking about Germany and the things that are crushing out energy, one of the real challenges Germany's facing at the moment is deindustrialization, and part of that is energy provision and this kind of pursuit of diffuse sources of energy rather than dense, scalable and cheap sources of energy is putting enormous pressures on their industrial sector. But there's also embedded in that the burden of regulation. There's also embedded in that bureaucracy and the many systems of government. How have you as a business leader who's based in Germany had to navigate that system? And are you optimistic about the industriousness of Germany's future and bringing life back to some of these working class communities?
Yeah, so first off, I'll start with the punchline. I believe that the potential in Germany with the legacy of culture as well as the legacy of industrialization and the intellectual human property is boundless. There's so much potential in Germany. However, we're currently in a situation where we believe that more government is better government. Or even if that's not what we believe, where the money is going is into more government.
Yeah.
More government, they need something to do, higher regulations. We have an energy policy that is self-harming. And as an entrepreneur, the way I work around it is, of course, you deal with whatever bureaucracy that you're obligated to the best of your ability, but it's a break on innovation. Any time that we spend on bureaucracy or dealing with things that don't add any value in terms of the product or the market is less time that we have to try to bring innovation. And so one of the things that we are doing is we move over time. We've moved a significant proportion, maybe 80% or more of our operations outside of Germany.
Yeah.
And that's not because we want to.
Yeah.
It's because we have to, because that gives us the best chance to survive. Because when we survive, we can recycle that back in to the economies of the world and in Germany as well for further innovation, because that's what we're doing. We're nerds, we're technologists, and the thing that we'll do when we have more success is we'll try to put it into more things in a technology related aspect. That's why technology driven innovation is so powerful and builds such a strong legacy, because we see that actually around us here in Germany. Starting from the 1870s with the Industrial Revolution, they've just constantly built incrementally over time here in Germany for 150 years. And that legacy has allowed them to build probably the strongest middle class, Mittelständler in the world. And we're at a risk of losing a lot of that.
It's interesting, you come back to the philosophical and what is your view of man? Is it a noble view of the enormous potential, the adventure of life, of entrepreneurship, of abundance, of trust? Or is it a view of man as a schemer and who needs to be restricted and regulated and controlled and constantly proving himself to be doing something honestly? And actually the philosophy that you build into the system then in lots of ways directs the outcomes. And unless you see human beings as trustworthy and adventurous and with lots of potential, how do you begin to wind back the state, wind back regulation, wind back oversight over everything that people are doing. And that kind of surveillance is extending from business into lots of different aspects of our lives. And I know particularly in English-speaking countries, the issues of tech censorship and freedom of speech in digital spaces, and all of this really comes back to what is your telos of mankind?
I don't know what the solution is. Obviously, I'm deeply honored to be in Germany and have contributed for over 20 years here, but I'm still a guest. And I do the best I can to keep as much in Germany as possible while maintaining kind of my responsibility to shareholders and our partners in our community, our global community. I think that unfortunately, we have a few more cycles, it feels. We have a couple more political cycles where it'll get worse, and hopefully not too many more, until figures like Javier Milei, like what's happening in Argentina, come to the fore and say, look, this isn't working. We need to change our mindset. We need to look towards human flourishing, and we bring out the best in people and not make them scared when they use a plastic straw, or they leave a light on, or they use a little bit more energy because the fan is on, or it's heating in the winter because they're cold and they want to turn it down to save energy. No, turn up the energy, use the fan, drink as many straws as you want, take a plane ride somewhere. I really believe that people will be much happier, and we should find ways to make that happen by bringing energy costs down, bringing more innovation here, creating more opportunities. But I'm just one person. And I'm doing the best I can, and I'm encouraging people around me to do. And I hope that the message that's being promoted is to have more and more people join this type of mission, because it's not fun in a lot of the time. You only see the results afterwards, but it's a worthy mission.
Well, I think this is what we're trying to do at ARC, is actually to gather these people invitationally all across the world who do share this, optimistic vision of mankind. And you say it's not fun till the end, but actually living in fellowship, living in relationship with one another, being part of something greater than yourself, that is like such a meaningful experience that actually does provide joy. It does provide delight. And that is, life should be an adventure. It should be fun. It shouldn't be something that you're constantly battered over the head feeling guilty about just for existing. Bruce, I'd just like to close on what gives you hope for the future. And obviously you still see value that you want to create. You're still motivated to keep pushing forward. What gives you hope? And then what does good look like? When is the moment when you say, okay, I can put my hat on the hat stand. It's time. I've done what I set out to achieve.
I mean, I already feel like I've been blessed in, I've already been able to accomplish more than I've ever dreamed of in my life. But there's still more, and I hope that I'm up to the. I hope that I'm up to the moment when an opportunity or a calling or a duty, an obligation presents itself that I can grasp it. What gives me hope is there's two ways that I think about it. There's the at the universal level and at the human level. And universally, we don't matter. We don't matter to the universe. Like, whether you recycle your stuff or not, the universe doesn't care. It's all going to be here on Earth anyway. So we're not destroying any oxygen or water, and it's just going to be here. And so that gives me a lot of comfort. However, we as humans, we're here 35,000 days on Earth, and I count them. 80 years. It's about 35,000 days, I think. And it's up to us to make the most of that time on Earth. And I believe that we leave probably 90% of our potential on the table. And if you can just raise that up to, instead of leaving 90% on, leaving 85% of yourself on the table, then that is a life well lived.